Well, good morning, everyone, to today's LLR Combined Fire Authority Local Pension Board meeting on Wednesday, the 9th of February. Are there any apologies? Oh, okay. Minutes of the Local Pension Board meeting held on the 2nd of December 2021, pages 5 to 8. Is everyone happy to approve those minutes? Okay, thank you. Although it's not on the agenda, I'll take any matters arising. I don't think there will be any, but no. Thank you very much. Conflicts of interest? No, don't believe there are any. So we move to what I always call the meat of the meeting, the actual proper agenda. So item 4, scheme managers update, including pension scheme risk register and breaches register. Over to you, Colin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So this is the first of a number of reports that I'll present this morning. So there'll be the pension scheme register and the breaches register, which are fairly swift items. I will then come on to the age discrimination remedy update, and I'll also provide some more recent updates and things that have happened and things that we're doing as part of that report. And then obviously we'll move on to the West Yorkshire Pension Fund Scheme Administrators update, and I will put my phone on silent as well. Okay, thank you, Chair. So the first item, which is the Firefighters Pension Scheme Register. The purpose of this report, as ever, is to provide an update to the board on the Firefighters Pension Scheme Risk Register. It's a standard report to each meeting for governance purposes. As ever, the board is asked to note the content of the register and to approve it subject to any amendments that it wishes to make. I would just draw attention to paragraph 8, which is that the risks are essentially unchanged since the previous report. I do go through them each time and looking at the report. I may make some minor amendments, but they're essentially unchanged. And clearly the implementation of the age discrimination remedy judgments remains a key risk for the authority, and that the board should be aware of. And of course, as you will be well aware, they're subject to numerous reports to this board and to CFA, and indeed on the agenda today, as I said earlier. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much, Colin, for that. I look around, are there any questions? And oh, Callum.
Not a question per se, but just to mention, yesterday we presented the corporate risk register to the combined corporate governance committee of the CFA, and just so the chair's aware, the pension scheme immediate detriment remedy is now on the organisation risk register and scoring fairly highly because of the risks it continues to present to the CFA and the service. So just for your information, really, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Callum. It looks as though there's no questions or clarifications needed, Colin. I look at the recommendation 2, sorry. The board is asked to review the content of the risk register attached at Appendix 1. You've had that opportunity, and approve the register if it feels that, subject to any amendments it makes, is adequately reflects the current risks. Everyone okay? Yeah, thank you very much. We move on to the next item on the agenda, which, just flicking back one moment. You'll probably be quicker than me, Colin. Hang on a second. Item 5, the Firefighters Pension Scheme Age Discrimination Remedy Update 2732. Colin, over to you again. Sorry? I think there's still a bit of item going through. Oh, okay, I missed that. That's my fault. Sorry.
Okay, well, as I said finally before she left, my intention has always been to slightly revise the format of these reports as I'll get more into this role. Hopefully by the next meeting I'll have done that, and we'll have a more cohesive covering report with all the items listed. So yes, the other part to item 4 is the Firefighters Pension Scheme Breaches Register, which is also a governance report that comes to each meeting. I'm pleased to note that no breaches have taken place in the period to the 31st of January, which of course was the period for the original date for this meeting. I'm not aware that any have occurred since either. So therefore the board is asked to note that no breaches have taken place, just as a matter of governance.
Any points to be raised now? No. So we go back to the recommendation. All happy. Thank you very much, and thanks, Chairman, for putting me right. So we move to item 5 on the agenda, which I can't remember what it was now because I've been told off. Yeah, yeah, age discrimination. So over to you, Colin. Anyway.
Okay, thank you very much. This is really the main report, I guess, for this meeting. So, as I said in my introduction at the start, I will go through this report briefly and then add on some other matters that I and the finance and HR teams are attending to, and things that have happened, just by way of an update, mainly linked to a discrimination remedy, but a couple of other things as well. So, yes, the purpose of this report, as you'll be aware, is to provide an update on the developments concerning the age discrimination remedy, and to note the decision of the CFA meeting on the 9th of February regarding the approach to be taken. And again, as I'm sure you'll all be aware by now, the CFA on the 9th of February decided to proceed with immediate detriment for upcoming retirements, known as Category 1, but not to adopt the Memorandum of Understanding or to address the Category 2, which are members that have already retired. And that was pending further national developments that I think have been well rehearsed previously. Just for your information, there are 21 members in Category 2, so members who have retired under the 2015 scheme over the course of the last 5 or 6 years, but who would be eligible to be reconsidered under their legacy, probably 1992 scheme. So there are 21 of those that we will need to work through at the point that we are able to proceed with Category 2. And as I say, we're not proceeding with those at the moment. And we estimate that there are 24 Category 1 members, i.e. people who have retired or coming up to retirement up until October 2023. That clearly is an estimate because we don't know for definite who's going to retire, but to give the board an idea of the numbers, as I said, we've got about 21 Category 2s that we will need to attend to, and 24 that we think is a probably estimate of firefighters likely to retire that we will have dealt with as Category 1 up until October 23. So the pension board is asked to, as in the recommendations, to note the update that I'm going to provide, to note the decision of the CFA to proceed essentially with Category 1 upcoming retirements, but not to adopt the MOU, and not to proceed with Category 2 that have already retired, and to make any comments on those CFA decisions or the operational implications. You will, I'm sure, be pleased to know that I'm not going to go through this report because in any level of detail, because I'm sure the board is familiar with most of its contents by now and you'll have had a chance to read it. Just to say, picking up on paragraph 6, that since the Home Office guidance underpinning the MOU was withdrawn back in November following the Treasury intervention, there has still been little further national progress. I believe the Scheme Advisory Board wrote to the Treasury in December asking for some further explanation of their intervention, and the response has not yet been received. I understand that fire authorities are now taking different approaches to this in the absence of the sort of national guidelines being better. So anecdotally, the most common approach is to offer the remedy to personnel approaching retirement, which is what our CFA decided to do upon Mining Colin's recommendation. So we deal with those that are coming up to retirement, but we leave those that have already retired to be looked at a later time. Paragraph 9 says that a detailed background was set out in previous reports and provides a summary. As I say, I will assume that you're familiar with that. I'm happy to go through it if you want, but I won't take you through it as part of my introduction. Just picking up on paragraph 18 on page 30, I sort of would highlight that obviously take the Category 1 members that take an immediate detriment remedy in advance of all the necessary legislation are exposed to a tax risk. So the decision isn't necessarily straightforward, and hence we do provide retiring members with their figures under both the reform scheme and the legacy scheme, and try to make them aware of the benefits and risks of each. Just so they're aware of that, and it is something we will have to come back to when all the necessary legislation and guidance is in place. We will need to revisit the position of those that have retired and have or have not taken an immediate detriment payment or approach. The general sector update at paragraph 21, that reference the FPS bulletins numbers 52 and 53 that have been issued since the previous meeting. Number 54 came out last week. That is actually I would say it's an interesting read. It's a useful read anyway, so I will just draw your attention to FPS bulletin 54 as well. Somehow I managed to print 2 copies off, so if anybody does want a copy of it, I probably can supply one as well. Moving on then to things that aren't set out in the report, there's a number of points that I would just like to update the board on. First of all, I've been asked just to mention Ukraine and whether there is any impact on the firefighters' pension scheme. I'm not aware of any because the government manages all the firefighter pension scheme funds. They're not managed locally. And as far as I'm aware, the government don't hold firefighters' pension money in a separate pot. So this will all be mixed up with the government financing. So I can say that there's no known or direct impact of any investments of the firefighters' pension fund linked to Russia, because it all sits with the government. So just to move on to some other points, all the remaining legacy scheme members, so all those members that are still in there in the 92 or 06 schemes, will move on to the 2015 scheme from the 1st of April as expected. The West Yorkshire Pension Fund has written to all active members, informing them of that and which category they fall into. In line with national arrangements, we ourselves will be sending a follow-up letter to the 25 members who are still in their legacy scheme and will therefore experience a change in pension contributions from the 1st of April. So although they will have had a letter from West Yorkshire Pension Fund already, along with all other active members, because they will actually see a change in their contribution levels as they move into the 2015 scheme from the 1st of April. We will be writing to those separately over the course of the next couple of weeks, and the finance and HR teams are working on that one currently. I think that's the case of crossing the I's and dotting the T's, really doing that. They have had the letter already, but they'll get another one from us because they will actually pay a different amount from April. We've also checked whether any active members have lifetime allowance protection, because apparently such members would need to take some action before the 2015 scheme comes in and applies to all members from 1st of April. I'm told that there are none in Leicestershire, so that's one particular issue that we don't have to deal with, or that the individual members concerned don't have to deal with. We've responded to a scheme advisory board survey of administrators and fire and rescue authorities about our readiness to implement the remedy. The SAB is trying to pull together just a picture across England of where fire and rescue authorities are with implementing remedy. So we've responded to that in the last week or so. As you'll probably be aware, there's a massive amount of work to be done preparing to implement remedy. So it's not only reviewing, once all the legislation comes in, it's not only a case of reviewing those that have retired as category 1 over recent years, or those that are category 2 that we need to revisit. So that it is also getting ready to move everybody's pension records onto the basis of the 2015 scheme, but also keeping all of their other records in place. And we will need to do that currently after October 23, but I'll come on to that. That's a massive amount of work for HR and finance and the pension fund. So we have now been there to release the finance team back at Birstall to be able to work on pension data collection and analysis, and that will help us to move forward with that one. But I am advised both by our own service and by comments generally across the sector. This is a massive piece of work to get all of this data in place. And this, as I say, this has enabled us to check Category 1 members' position, to be able to address Category 2, but also to have all the records in place for what's called the deferred choice underpin, which is where when all members, when they eventually retire, will be able to choose at that point whether they retire fully in the 2015 scheme or whether they take their years in their legacy 92 scheme. And we need to, and that could be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years hence. So we need to have all that data in place ready so that those calculations and those options can be offered at the time. So that is a piece of work that is underway. And so I'm pleased to say we have been able to release a member of staff to start working on that, but I don't underestimate the amount of work that's involved. Also, perhaps that's the point to say that the legislation, as you'll probably be aware, is due to be implemented in October 2023. I think there's increasing noise around the sector about whether that will actually be the case and whether it will in fact come later. I don't know whether Callum wants to add anything to that. I think he's been involved in some network discussions on this, but I am starting to get the definitive feeling that October 23 may not be the final date for implementing all the remedy legislation.
I can add to that, Chair. It's nothing solid. Through the National Fire Chiefs Council, the Finance Committee have been pressing the Treasury and the Home Office quite hard for a letter of comfort around tax implications for individuals, which we've been expecting for some time, which hasn't yet arrived. And there is kind of murmurings now at the moment that the legislation that we were expecting by October 2023 will not be in place and is drifting significantly to the tune of somewhere between a year and 18 months later. So it doesn't particularly help us or anyone in resolving the matter, but it's just to kind of let people know that I think that date of October 2023 is already looking very unachievable.
Well, thanks for that update.
Okay,
carry on.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a few more points to draw to the board's attention. The Scheme Advisory Board is commissioning a suite of illustrative member scenarios. Describe them. This is to provide scheme members with a better understanding of the remedy implications. So my understanding is it will take a number of real life situations, if you like, and actually show how those members' pensions implications would be, what their options would be, how they might be affected. And so that work's being commissioned by the Scheme Advisory Board. It's referenced on the Scheme Advisory Board website and also on the FBU website, because I think obviously there's a general need to make sure that firefighters, scheme members properly understand what remedy means. A remedy fact checker has been produced recently, which doesn't take any individual scenarios, but does have a number of sort of commonly asked questions, if you like, or common misconceptions. Is this true or false? It says whether it's true or false and then goes on to explain why. So that again is available both, I think, on the Scheme Advisory Board website. It was also published by the FBU a couple of weeks back. So hopefully that again will help firefighters and scheme members to understand what remedy means and what it doesn't. What it doesn't mean, and the pension board might find that a useful document to read. It runs to about 4 pages. I haven't fully read it myself yet, but I think it's good to know that it's out there and available for people to read. And I think it's going to be helpful to have the individual example scenarios published as well, with some sort of actual situations, actual numbers. Also, just to note, and I think that the case of a firefighter who died whilst in service in 2016 and was still a member of the 1992 scheme at the time of his death was raised in the House of Commons last week. This is a member who had been in a long-term relationship, lived with his partner. Had children, I believe, from previous marriage and current relationship, living in the household. But under the terms of the 1992 regulations, we are not allowed to pay a pension to the surviving partner. because they weren't married and they weren't in a formal civil partnership. I think is probably the best way of describing it. The children are entitled to a dependence pension, I understand, but the surviving partner isn't. So that's been the subject of considerable discussion over recent years. I know Alison Greenhill, when she was scheme manager, preceding myself, became involved in that. I've had some involvement in it. Callum, as chief fire officer, I think has had a number of meetings about it. And as I say, it was raised in the House last week by the MP for Charnwood, the local MP, and received a response from the Fire Minister. And again, if anyone wishes to watch, if anyone would like to watch that, we can circulate the link. The question and the answer can be viewed on the Houses of Parliament TV, and it is actually worth a listen. I think I found it quite interesting. Again, so our hands are tied on this one. I think we all have significant sympathy with this particular situation. But scheme administrators, we are bound by the rules of the 92 scheme, and they are clear that we are not able to pay a pension to the firefighter surviving partner. Had he been in the 2015 scheme at the time, then we would have been able to, and that essentially is the key point, that because of the tapering arrangements, he had not at the time of his death in 2016 tapered onto the 2015 scheme. Had he have died a year or 18 months later, he would by that point have tapered onto a 2015 scheme, and a pension would have been payable to the surviving partner under the terms of the 2015 regulations, but then not under the 1992. So I just thought, given it's been an ongoing issue and it now has national significance and was raised in the House, I thought it would be helpful to draw that to the board's attention this morning.
So Colin, you said that our hands are tied on this matter because of, I mean, it's an administration thing, isn't it? It's not. I mean, I know it's legal. It's a legal thing, but it's so, well, it's unfair, isn't it? It really is unfair. And I don't know what we're doing as an authority in trying to support this matter. What are we doing?
I think it might be a joint answer between himself and the colleagues in the Fire Brigade Union, really. Colin's absolutely right. We've looked at it when the matter occurred prior to my time in the service, and as it's come to light again now, I've looked at every opportunity. The harsh reality is we have no opportunity to apply discretion in this case. If there was any route where we could apply some discretion, I think Colin would have already taken it and I'd be fully supportive of it. We've got no opportunity to apply discretion given the circumstances. I feel incredibly hard or incredibly empathetic to the individuals involved, because I think you're right. It doesn't feel right. It feels morally wrong. We don't have an opportunity to flex that at the moment. The hope we had was that the new legislation in October 2023 was going to provide an opportunity where, in effect, the member would have been able to choose which pension they were in for a period of time, and given the circumstances, it's entirely foreseeable that they would now choose the 15 scheme, which would allow us then to start paying a benefit to the individual. But as we've already kind of covered, the legislation looks like that's already drifting in the wind. Unfortunately, there's no leeway that can be applied without significant ramifications for the Combined Fire Authority and Colin and I around legalities of breaking rules, which is it's not something I would suggest to the authority we want to entertain. As harsh as that sounds, it's the legal protection of the authority that really has to be considered at that moment. So there's very little, well, there's nothing we can do. I met with and I'll probably hand over to Mr. Taylor to give a probably better commentary on the involvement. But I met with Jane Hunt, MP, about a month ago prior to her presenting the paper in the House. I have to say it is worth a listen. I got the utmost respect for her. She presented the case beautifully and very eloquently, and got a response from the Minister which pretty much echoes. Shall I hand over to you, Adam, if you're comfortable?
If that's okay, Chair. Yeah, thank you for the report, Colin, and thank you for the question, Councillor. Just as Callum says, the MP did present at an adjournment debate last week, and very eloquently did so. I thought the response was a stock response that you'd expect from the Minister, but I also felt the MP handled the additional questions very well, as you'd expect. There are other avenues we can look at. I know that the Fire Authority and the Chief Officer have made decisions previously, as far back as 2018, but also most recently as well. We will seek legal advice on this matter, so we are supporting the family further with this. But I echo the comments being made already. Please watch the video and read the transcript of the adjournment debate last week. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Adam. I mean, is it possible that Jane Hunt can do more?
Chair, I think my understanding is that the fact that it has been raised in the House of Commons has raised the profile with that department, and questions will be asked subsequently. So I'm not sure that avenue is dead in the water, but it's something else that can be followed up.
It does.
Sorry,
just to quote Elaine, I mean, it does seem morally wrong, but Elaine, carry on.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Not only is it morally wrong, the inequalities that surround this are, I think they're just, it's terrible. It's terrible. It's, for a woman to have to, not only is she mourning her partner, to then have to face that, those legalities. I think it's criminal, actually. There's no equality in it whatsoever. I think her voice has really been shut down, and I think that's grossly unfair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I absolutely agree, Councillor. I mean, the position that the member's surviving partner finds herself in, it has been rectified subsequently in other pension schemes, in the 2006 pension scheme and also obviously the 2015, where a relationship that they found themselves in is recognised and a pension would be awarded to the surviving partners. Absolutely. I appreciate that obviously the 1992 pension scheme was, set and formulated in 1992, but it still seems like an archaic situation. And actually what it did, certainly in Leicestershire, but I know in other services as well, I know that couples actually got married on the back of the death of our member, just so that they didn't find themselves in that position as well, which depends on their views on marriage. Not necessarily their natural choice, but felt they had to do it just to protect their pension and their surviving partners and families.
Yeah, thank you very much. So a lot of lessons have been learnt from this case then. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
So effectively change has got to come from the top, isn't it? That's what we're saying.
Yes, until there is either some leeway granted by central government on this particular case or the legislation underpinning rules change, there's nothing we can do. If they were to grant some independence around this particular case, we would sit down immediately and look to award that. That's not a debate we're even thinking of having. But until that happens, and I hope Jane Hunt MP's speech has greased some of those wheels, hopefully. But I wait with bated breath, and we'd be keen to do the right thing if we legally can do.
Working civil servants are working at it, and hopefully they'll come back with a positive way forward. Hopefully, fingers crossed. My sympathy goes to the person who's obviously, as Elaine said, morally cheated to me. But hey ho, it's a sad case. It's the first I've heard of this, by the way. I had no idea about this until this morning's meeting. Has it made the BBC local media, East Midlands?
Certainly not in the most recent iteration that I'm aware of. We haven't been invited for comment. I dare say, obviously at the time of the gentleman's passing, it would have made local press, but I'm not sure that would have been around the pension issues that surround it. So not at the moment, no.
Okay, thanks. Adam.
Just to be sort of mindful on that, Fire Brigade Union quite often in the BBC and the local news, but this is very clearly a matter that we want to support their members, surviving family on. So any sort of any kind of raised awareness of this in the news would most certainly support them or certainly support.
What I'll do is, as a single person, I will raise this with my MP, Alicia Kearns, and who obviously is very supportive of Jane, and we'll work together well and see what maybe Alicia can do. Yeah. Okay, Colin, is anything else?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll just conclude my update. I think also as far as just without prolonging the debate on that particular member, as far as we're aware, this is the only instance in the country where this has happened. So I suspect it may not be top on the top of civil servants lists, because whilst it's a very significant issue here and clearly for the person concerned, and I think around this room we'd all agree what the outcome should be. So as far as I'm aware, this is the only instance where this particular situation happened. Perhaps other people have taken avoiding action and got married, or actually by the time it came to light, they had taken into a 2015 scheme. But perhaps we'll ask Gemma to circulate the link for the parliamentary debate to the board so that you may see it. Yes. Yeah. Okay, just one of the points, Chair, that I would like to mention. This is unrelated to remedy, you'll be pleased to know. So a more general pensions matter. There is a national pensions dashboard being developed. So the idea of this is that because sort of across the country people have a number of different. Often people have a number of different pensions these days from different employers as they've moved around. The government wants to enable people to see all of their pensions, including their state pension, in one place. So a national pensions dashboard is being developed. So there's some consultations going on at the moment about what that will look like and how it will be based in terms of when different pensions will come onto it. I don't claim to be an expert in this by any means, but just really to draw the board's attention to the fact that this will be happening. I think the Scheme Advisory Board for Firefighter Pensions are responding to the consultation. I have no doubt it will lead to further work. Again, either for the pension administrators or to individual fire and rescue services, to make sure that we've got the data in the right format, in the right place to enable to populate this national pensions dashboard. I think we're looking at 2024 onwards, and it'll be phased in. But just to make you aware that that's coming as well, and obviously that will be available to firefighters to be able to see all the pensions to which they're entitled from whatever employment. I think, Chair, that concludes my update. I hope that was useful. I'm happy to take any further comments or questions.
Massively useful, and thank you. Quite an in-depth read through on that paper, so thanks for that, Colin. Now, Adam, you've got a question, and then to be followed by Callum.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just going back to the point that Colin made around the fact that the situation that you referred to with our member is most likely to be the only situation that a family finds themselves in this regard. For me, that reduces the risk significantly, because actually there's not much potential for a discrimination case, or where someone else hasn't been treated the same, and actually it's not going to create an influx of cases of this kind as well. So from my point of view, I'd just like to get on record, I believe that would reduce the risk to the authority, and perhaps to any sort of legal case against the authority. But I just want to get that on record, if you don't mind, Chair. Thank you.
Far from it, and I look to Gemma and confirm it is on the record. Callum.
And I think just building on that further point as well, there will likely be, if we do get the opportunity to explore it, likely some questions around the individual's choices at the time around moving schemes and staying in the 92 scheme. I think we have to be really fair and not judge that with the benefit of hindsight. Yes, had the individual chosen to move into the 2006 scheme, they would have had the death benefits. But looking at it through the real world and the lenses of the real world, it would be an absolutely silly choice to have moved to that scheme for the long-term financial stability of his family. So I think we have to, when we're reviewing that circumstance, kind of look at it through the individual's eyes, not with hindsight. And I think any of us in the room, if we're presented with that choice, would have made exactly the same choice around not moving to that scheme. So again, I'm not sure I've really got a point here, but I just think if we get the opportunity to review it, we have to look at it from the individual's perspective rather than a top level, why didn't they do this, why didn't do that, around their individual choices. Because if I was that individual, I would have made exactly the same choice. And then just finally, Chair, just talking about the remedy position for Leicestershire Fire Rescue Service and the Combined Fire Authority, it is not a risk-free choice we've made here. Colin and I believe it to be A, the right thing to do, and B, the least risky thing to do. Other services who have made the choice not to pay out at all, I believe, have already received notification of legal cases. So I would suggest we have taken a pragmatic approach. And as Colin suggested, the numbers for Leicestershire Fire and Rescue Services are relatively low, so that risk is within our risk appetite. But for other services with much larger workforces, they may have to make different decisions, which is where I suppose the discrepancy is coming between the stances of different authorities or different governance bodies about what they're doing. But I do firmly support Colin on this, that I think what we're doing is right for our people who are retiring now, but to afford the maximum protection to the CFA at the same time. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Callum. I'm looking around. Are there any further points, questions, clarifications needed?
I have something.
Yeah. I want to go back before we hand it to the lady now. Yeah, no, it's okay. So, what page are we on?
Sorry, Chair, I'm not sure whether Helen's got a question on my report or whether we're now moving on to Helen's report.
I've got some additional
this paper. Sorry, I thought you were waiting for the next item. Sorry, I do apologise. Okay, over to you.
No, I've got some additional information on some of Colin's points. So in terms of the Scheme Advisory Board sending a letter to the Home Office about the prospective amendments, a response has been received back from Home Office. That came yesterday, but I think at the moment it's only gone to Scheme Advisory Board members. So they've sent a response letter and they've also provided some a Q&A document as well. So I think that will be available to everybody in the next few days. So that's not going to be long. Then in terms of Colin mentioned that as an authority, you were looking at sending a letter to all the members who are currently still in the final salary schemes and are going to move into the 2015 scheme for the first time on the 1st of April 22. Just to say that the LGA are going to be providing a template for letters to such members. And I think it's going to cover the contribution rate change and the table banding and everything for the 15. But I think it's also going to highlight the ability to transfer in and the need for death grant expression of wish forms and the partner pension forms. So it might be an idea to wait for that so you can ensure that either you can use that as a template or to make sure that everything that they're suggesting should be mentioned is included in your letter. And then in terms of the pension dashboards, the LGA have produced 2 responses. I think the deadline is the end of this week for the consultation responses. They've produced a response on behalf of fire and rescue authorities and a response on behalf of the Scheme Advisory Board. I have been sent both of those draft responses for comment. So I think they're going to be available to view fairly soon as well, if they're not already available. But the thing I would say about dashboards, one of the main kind of contentions from the fire authority's perspective and the fire administrator perspective is that the fire scheme is being lumped in with public sector schemes, most of which are considerably larger. So they're wanting people to sign up to the dashboard, and they're talking about 100, is it 100 members or more, 1,000 members or more, excluding pensioners. But if you're looking at individual fire authorities, then a lot of them don't meet that criteria. But if you're looking at the fire scheme as a whole, then they do. But if you're looking at the fire scheme as a whole to give you the numbers, that then produces a secondary issue, because each fire and rescue authority has their own administrator and will be going through a separate process to get signed up to the dashboard and to have everything available. So although they're wanting everything done together so that all public sector schemes go on at the same time, the fact that fire authorities have individual administrators and 43 scheme managers makes that much more difficult. The other thing is that they're talking about the kind of the date, kind of the backstop date that public sector schemes should be up and running on the dashboard as April 2024. So I think the date is actually October 23, which is when the legislation is due to come into force, the retrospective legislation, and it's supposed to be giving us kind of 6-month window up to the April 2024. The problem with that is, I think it's possible that administrators could make, could have the information available for the dashboards by that point, but it's all a matter of what information can then be seen by members. Because if the Callum said that there's potential delays, but if we say that the legislation is due on the 1st of October and will be law at that point, we've got 18 months to provide something called a remedial service statement, which is basically the information to the members that says this is your benefits if you convert the remedy period to legacy 1992 benefits or 2006, and this is what you're going to get if it's all classed as 2015. And we've got 18 months to do that. So that takes us to October 25. So having April 25. So we'd have from October 23 to April 25 to do that. But the dashboard is expecting information to be available from April 24. So the only way information can be available from April 24 is just to link to the last annual benefit statement. And that will basically not take any of the remedy issues into account. So it will be incorrect. So where I think, but all administrators who are responding, the LGA and the Scheme Advisory Board responses are all highlighting the problems with the time frame and how the time frame is not matching with what the expectation for remedy is. And is it really right that we sign up and start showing data on the dashboard that's wrong? Because surely we don't want anybody to kind of disengage with it. The whole thing is that the government and the DWP want this to work, and they want mass coverage, and they want members to use it. So if we supply information that the members are going to look at and say, well, that's no use to me, that's nothing to do with remedy, and then they never go back and look again, it's defeating the object of the dashboards in the first place. So we're kind of formalising responses on that consultation to highlight those major issues. So I think that's my 3 points on the stuff Colin's covered. So if anybody wants to, got any questions or any further information on that?
Thanks very much. I'm just asking Colin if he could just, some of this stuff is new to me, so I'm just asking Colin to give his view.
I think that's helpful, Helen, thank you. And obviously Helen's closer to this some of this in particular than me. So that I think it's useful to know that the Treasury have now responded to the Scheme Advisory Board's letter regarding their advice last November that led to the latest phase of difficulties. So it'll be interesting. I think, as I said in my introduction, they hadn't, but obviously they have yesterday. So it will be useful to see their further explanation of why they made the Home Office pull the guidance last November, which has obviously led to 5 authorities not proceeding with the MOU, including us. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see that and see what it says. I think the letter to members, I also mentioned that we would need, that notwithstanding that West Yorkshire have written to all active members about that everybody being in the 2015 scheme from April, that I said as an authority we would need to write to those that are still in their legacy scheme and will therefore be paying a different contribution rate from April. Sean Connor, the regional pensions advisor, had drafted a letter which was what we're going to use, but if the LGA are issuing a template, then I agree with Helen. It would be useful for us either to use that or to at least make sure that everything that is in that is covered in our local letter. So I'll feed that back to the team and make sure to say that we either use the LGA letter for those 20 odd members, or that we make sure we cover at least everything it contains. And I think the pensions dashboard, yes, there's a lot of information there that Helen said. As I said, I don't in any way claim to be an expert on the pensions dashboard, other than being aware that it's happening. I think Helen has set out some of the difficulties there really for the firefighters pension scheme, and actually, yeah, does our information go on, because we're all relatively small employers, but collectively it's all the firefighters, but actually what would the value of that information be if, when it goes on in 2024, it doesn't have any reference to the remedy in it, and it simply reflects on your benefit statements. But I suspect the pensions dashboard has got quite a way to go yet, and far better minds than me will be responding to that, I'm sure.
Okay, Callum.
It was just while Colin was looking at, I actually got an email at 8 o'clock this morning asking for some consultation feedback on the dashboard. So it's literally arrived this morning. Thanks.
The template, do members of the authority get to see that when it pops up? Template from the LGA, was it?
Yes, that was the template letter for us to send to those members who are still at the minute in the 92 scheme, or even the 06 scheme, who will move on to a 2015 scheme from April. So yes, that I'm sure that will be shared with all 5 authorities. Obviously, it's being drafted at the moment, and yes, we'll say, well, either use that as it stands, or we'll make sure that our local letter covers everything that's in it.
Elaine.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to, I've got 2 words really, complicated, confusing, both with exclamation marks by them. The one I wanted to ask about, obviously we need clearer guidance on all of this. I mean, I don't understand it at all. So, I mean, and I guess that, the members, it's going to be very confusing for them as to which way to go. The other thing that I wanted to ask is, do you have to be part of this national pensions dashboard? That's it. Thank you.
Yes, it's compulsory.
Thanks, Helen. Yes, I think the issue with the pensions.
Are you happy with that?
Colin made that comment, and he said that somebody obviously with more knowledge than him will be doing this. Now, I think that's questionable. So that's that's it.
Colin. Yes, with regards to the pensions dashboard, so Helen obviously is much more linked in with that than I am, but yes, it is something we will have to do. I think the question is how and when and how useful it is, and I'm sure that's what the LGA and the Scheme Advisory Board will be responding on. Just with regards to about this being complicated and complex, it is, and I'm sorry if I've confused everybody even more this morning, but in terms of members, they don't have to do anything at the moment unless a member is actually coming up to retirement. actually they don't have to do anything. Obviously, a member who's coming up to retirement does have to decide whether to retire in the 2015 scheme or in their legacy scheme for the relevant years. And as I said, that's why any such member gets sort of 2 or 3 sets of numbers via West Yorkshire Pension Fund. It's why they get an information pack, and I'm sure they'll be talking to their FBU reps and to each other. As regards everybody else, I mean, from 1st of April, all active members will be in the 2015 scheme, and there's nothing for them to do unless they retire. I think that's the key point here, that all this is happening. A lot of work is happening in the background. We still need regulations, but whilst firefighters stay at work, they will all be in the 2015 scheme from 1st of April, making contributions in that. When the regulations come in, be that October 23 or later, they will come in. I think as Sean Connor said on his pensions briefing last time, I think we will work on the basis that all members will sort of remain in the will have their benefits calculated for the legacy scheme period, but they will actually make that decision when they come to retire. So if they retire, as I said, 5, 10, 15 years time, the deferred choice underpin will allow them at that point to decide how they take their benefits. So as far as I'm happy to be corrected on this by anybody, but to my knowledge, the only members that have to take decisions at the moment are those coming up to retirement. And as I say, we will, when all the regulations are in place, we will need to revisit those anyway, because there'll be tax implications. We'll see the detail of the regs, and they will all need to be reviewed anyway to see whether we've done it right in the light of the regulations as published, or whether there's any tax implications to sort out. So it all sounds very complicated, and it is very complicated, but it actually affects, in terms of decisions, it actually affects a relatively small number of members. Although in terms of although clearly it does affect everybody's future pensions position, but not to the extent they need to take any decisions now.
Go ahead.
Will the pension dashboard replace the annual benefit statement? Is that what the plan is for that? And which is most likely to reflect the immediate detriment changes first for members to make those decisions?
I look to professional. Are you going to answer this, Colin, or
do you want me to answer?
Yes, please.
No, it won't replace annual benefit statements, because the data on the dashboards will be from the annual benefit statements. That's how the member's that's the information that the member is going to see. But what its aim is to pull all the pensions for that one member into the same place, and they can view everything that they've got available at once. But the information will come I think from all schemes, will come from the last benefit statement that was produced by that scheme, and it's not a live interactive dashboard. It's a static one at the moment, so you can't put potential you can't do calculations through it, or you can't arrange for your benefits to be paid or ask for transfer values or anything like that. It's just kind of viewing platform at the initial stages.
No supplementary. No. Okay. Is there any other points to be raised at all? I think I'm going to have to Elaine that. It's the 3 C's, isn't it? Complex, confusing. It just, it's quite to me. But, Colin, and then I think Callum as well.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I absolutely, I agree. This is all complicated, confusing, and having been the pension scheme manager for just under a year now, it's taken me time to get my head around as well, particularly amongst everything else. I think it's perhaps just helpful to sort of remind what the role of this board is, and I think so my take is it's a governance board. You particularly as a sort of councillors, but also the FBU reps, you sort of need to be assured that we've got a handle on this, so we're doing it properly. So although you may not understand everything that Helen and I and others are saying, and I wouldn't necessarily expect you to understand the detail of it, I hope you do gain some confidence actually we are doing things properly. We have got a handle on things. We do understand it, and we're taking the necessary actions. And I think that's probably a key role for this board. Are you satisfied that I, as scheme manager, that Helen as the administrator, are you, and like Callum as the chief, are you satisfied that we've got a proper grip on this, that we understand what's going on, that we're doing what we need to be doing, and that we're dealing with any problems? And I think that's probably your key role as a governance committee. Yes, it's great if you understand all of the issues, and you'll understand some better than others, but are you confident that we're doing it? And I think having the FBU representatives on the board is really helpful, because actually if they're getting feedback from their members, or what FBU colleagues are saying is actually the authority isn't doing what it needs to be doing, we don't really understand what we're doing, we're not really getting on with things, that's clearly something that they should be bringing to this and making the board aware of. I mean, hopefully that's not the case, but that I think is a key function of this board. It's a governance board. Yeah, are you happy with doing what we understand it, we're doing what we need to do? Callum?
I think I agree with the 3 C's, but I'd also add an M in there, that it's messy as well. And this is just dealing with the immediate detriment part of it. Actually, there was likely to be a follow-on case to deal with the hurt feelings aspect and the confusion and cause. So this, whilst it feels like wading through treacle at the moment, is probably only the first round of wading through treacle, and there may be some more to come in the fullness of time. So I also would like to suggest Colin is the brain to provide the feedback on a lot of this, because he knows the scheme a lot better than I do as well. So I thank him for his work, but just with the lovely look forward that we've probably got quite a few years of sorting these things out as and when the national guidance is available as well.
Graham, Adam, do you have any further comments? Nope, neither of you. No. Elaine?
Just to say, I am confident that, you know, you've got a handle on this, and I think it's really important that, you know, our role as councillors on this committee, I'm really pleased that you recognise that, Colin, and you know, and yes, we do trust that you are looking into these matters thoroughly. I mean, I know what you like, Colin. You love this sort of thing, and you know, I think you thrive on it. So I'm very happy that you're dealing with these matters. Thank you, Chair.
And if it helps, Colin, obviously you got my full confidence in this. On your comments that, you know, at 10 o'clock, I couldn't grasp it at all, but I have to say I'm picking up on it. Got a long way to go to get to your knowledge base, but a long way to go. But I've got grasped the headlines, shall we say, quite easily now, and certainly echo. Yeah, we have full confidence in you. Okay, so no further comments at all on this. The 3 C's, as we're going to call it from now on, plus an M. Yeah. So there is a recommendation at 2A, 2B, 2C. I'm sure you've got them all. Is everyone happy with those? Yeah, okay, thanks very much. We move on to the next paper, which is West Yorkshire. Yeah, a report from the West Yorkshire Pension Fund Pension Administrator. So over to you.
Thank you.
By the way, are you in Leeds or Bradford, or where are you?
I am halfway between Wakefield and Leeds.
Wakefield and Leeds, okay.
Because I'm working from home still, but our offices are in Bradford.
Right, it's just that my other half lives in Bradford, that's all. Yeah.
Yeah, the offices are in the centre of Bradford, but yeah, still working from home. So
yeah. Anyway,
right.
Over to you.
Thank you. Right, just to kind of slightly go back to the pensions dashboards, I have just sent Colin an email with a link to a website. The DWP have just done 4 webinars on pensions dashboard and different parts of it, and those webinars the slides are available, and kind of they are there to be viewed if somebody wants to, and the same website hosts links to kind of different forms and different guidance notes and leaflets and on all kinds of different information and different aspects of the dashboard. So that kind of email link is there if anybody should become interested and feels the need to have a bit of a further dive into dashboards and what they're all about. So then, but back onto to go back to the report. not too much to update on actually, and everything. And obviously, it was done for the February meeting, so things have moved on again, as Colin said with his. So there's no updates on annual benefit statements and pension savings statements because, you know, we deal with those kind of in August and October. So we haven't moved around to kind of looking at the production for the 2022 year yet. There was just an update on where we were with the regulation changes, but most of that's been covered by Colin. The risk and breaches, there is nothing to depart from West Yorkshire Pension Fund's side. How we're dealing with the remedy cases, we are continuing to process cases in accordance with the instructions from each FRA. So as you've already been told, Leicestershire are dealing with prospective retirements under the National Framework Agreement and giving members the options. So that's what, you know, we're providing all that information to ensure that the member has all the figures they need to make their decision. In terms of, there is what we need, and Colin alluded to it, is that the pension fund needs a lot of information regarding every member affected by remedy so that we are able to provide the benefits available under the DCU options. And there is a what's basically being referred to as a data collection template that we need to send out to all fire authorities. We've had a few problems with it and coming up with a few errors, but we have moved on towards the end of last week, and we've run it, the whole extract, against a test fire and rescue authority. And we just have to go through that and make sure that it's putting the data in all the boxes as it should, and that there doesn't appear to be any problems with it. Once we're happy that it's working as we want, we will then run it for all our fire authorities and send those out. And what will need to happen then is, once they are received by the fire authorities, they need to go through all the data held on this template for every affected member and first of all confirm if the information held by WYPF is correct. If it is incorrect, they need to supply the correct information. And then there are certain elements of information that West Yorkshire Pension Fund don't hold. So for somebody who's always been a member of the final salary scheme, who will have the opportunity to elect for 2015 benefits for the remedy period, we don't have any 2015 pay or contributions or any of that information. So that would need to be supplied. And also conversely, the ones who've moved into the 2015 scheme, we know what the care pay was that they received and those contributions, but we need to know what the final salary 92 paying contributions would be, and whether, you know, and what the relevant information for contribution, continuous professional development and additional pension benefits and all this kind of thing. So as well as verifying the accuracy of what we do hold, they will have to supply everything that we don't hold. So that is going to be a fairly big job, but I'm hoping that we will be able to get the template out probably by the middle of April, because I'm on a couple of weeks leave at the end of the month, so it'll probably be once I get back. The update on Matthews, which is the retained firefighters second options exercise, I've put that there's no update, but actually on Tuesday the LGA suggested that things are now moving again with this, and there is a bit of speculation that this regulation will come in and have an effective date of the 1st of October 2023. Which is the same date as, obviously, you all know that we're initially expecting the retrospective amendment regulations. So that could potentially cause some difficulties with the work needed to be done in specific timescales. because once this is live and the amendment, the regulations are in force for Matthews, there will be an 18-month window for FRAs to deal with everything. So, and then the other thing is, I've just, as usual, I've just added the key performance indicators on there for October to December. So as I've mentioned, things have moved on quite a bit since I put that report together. And what I would recommend is that West Yorkshire Pension Fund supplies something called a monthly client report. And I would suggest that you have a look at the report for February, because there is quite a lot of information in that report. Some of it's come from the local government association bulletins, but we have had added some information about kind of software developments for Remedy, and also some feedback from benchmarking and some recent audits that have been undertaken for, on kind of West Yorkshire services. And I just think that's probably something very useful for you to have a look at, in terms of giving you the reassurances of how deeply and often we are audited, and how we compare against other administrators and other pension schemes out there in the sector. So as I say, that all came after I'd completed the bulletin, but I think it would be a useful thing for people to have a look at. So that's my update concluded.
Thanks for Helen. Well, sounds like the 1st of October next year is going to be a busy day, or could be. So
I think I'll be on leave.
Yeah, you've got plenty of time to book it at the moment anyway. But, Colin's probably looking forward to the challenge though. So anyway, we shouldn't make light of serious business. I look to members for any questions or clarifications. No, it sounds like your detailed report has satisfied everyone, Helen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we move on to the next item, which I can't remember what it's headed, but it's employees' comments or something like that. I can find it quickly. I know it's the last item on the agenda.
Employee representative.
That's right. Over to you guys then. No? Oh, nice and easy then, wasn't it? Okay, which takes us on to the date of the next meeting, isn't it? Which follows the next Combined Fire Authority in June. Can't remember the date offhand. Okay, thank you for that, Gemma. It's a long, long way off yet. There is a possibility, as I understand it, further training on equalities for those who missed yesterday. Okay, if I could just ask us one of those who couldn't make yesterday, if we could have a bit of a break for lunch at some point. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, okay, well, thank you very much, everyone. I think we've covered everything pretty well. Elaine and I have certainly learned a lot this morning, and we look forward to meeting you all again in June. Thank you very much.
Thank you.